In the autumn of 1944, we were briefed for an operation called Market. That was part of Market Garden. That was the whole operation. Field Marshal Montgomery had the idea then that if we could get round through the back door of Germany, the war would be over by Christmas. Well, that was a stock phrase. I mean, in 1914, get in now, lads, because it'll be over by Christmas, you see. And everybody wants to get in on the act. Anyway, we thought it was a bit much, this operation, because we were furthest away from the relieving force. We went to Arnhem, and we had to march some 8 miles from the landing zone to the town of Arnhem, where the bridge was, you see. But the idea was to keep the bridge intact so the advancing 30 Corps could cross it and then drive straight into Germany, you see, and complete the war. It didn't happen because I think the intelligence might have been a bit faulty, or somebody was over-optimistic. The weapons we carried were light weapons like rifles, Bren guns, 2-inch mortars. We had a few cannon, artillery pieces, 6-pounders, and I think we had 17mm, something like that. But they were no match for what the Germans had. I mean, they had tanks for a start, and they had self-propelled guns, which carried the 88mm terror weapon in those days it was. Once the shell hit you, that was it, finished. As you can see, no shell hit me. But it was a dreadful noisy business, that was the worst thing. Shells bursting in the trees, and oh dear, dear. Anyway, after about 9 days, we were withdrawn and we crossed the Rhine to freedom, as it were. We had to wrap our boots up with whatever bits of blanket or cotton wool we could find, just to deaden the sound of our walking. Some chaps were unfortunate. They were caught by fire from fixed lines of fire by the enemy, but I had no problem. I was faced with quite a long queue at the riverside. I thought, bless my soul, we'll never get away from this. Anyway, my first pilot at the time, he was a bit of a scrounger, as any good soldier might be. And there was a wounded man nearby who called, somebody help me please. So my number one says, come on then. I had a big box of Bren gun ammunition, he had the Bren gun. He put his Bren gun down and told me to put my box of ammunition down, and we helped this soldier. We took him to the riverside to put him on a boat. Now my number one got on first, and I had to lift this fellow up to him. I thought, well, that's my job done. I was wading back to the bank, and it was a Canadian soldier, a Canadian sapper, I think, who was working the boat, told the fellas to grab me, and they dragged me on. So in that way I got away with it, otherwise I wouldn't have. I felt a bit bitter about that because it's a matter of taking one's turn, you see. Anyway, I didn't complain. I was glad to be out of it, to be honest. We eventually reached Nijmegen, and then by lorry who went to Louvain. That was quite a day's ride. And all along the road we noticed burnt out tanks, burnt out lorries, quite a mess. And we were quite amazed at this. I mean, the way we were briefed, it was going to be a pushover, you see. Anyhow, we arrived back in England, had some leave, and then back to work. We went across the Rhine and did our stuff and came back. I then went to Royal Air Force Station Fairford, and we were preparing to go to the Far East. I don't think any of us were looking forward to that. We didn't care much for the idea of jungle warfare. We'd heard so much about the army in Burma and what a dreadful time they had. But luckily, the atom bomb arrived and the war suddenly finished. We were relieved.